Witnesses Counsel has something she would like to state before we get started today.
Well, first of all, good morning and thank you. I just wanted to state for the record that we had requested that there be amplification so that the witness both could hear the different members who are here, and certainly you all as you all are asking questions, but also so that the witness herself could hear. In a construct where you all now have videotape, it seems as though being able to provide that amplification to ensure we're heard would be relevant and important. We recognize that there was concern, at least initially expressed to us, that the court reporters might not be able to conduct their duties efficiently. They indicated that they could do so that was not actually an issue. And I think in the end, what we wanted to ensure is that there's clear amplification not only of our own witness, but of all of the members who have traveled so far, to be able to ensure that everyone could be heard and that clear answers are given to questions.
And I want to again state for the record, the microphones provided by the Clintons became an issue for the audio recording. So we want crystal clear audio and visuals of today's proceedings, so the microphones were removed. We'll take into account tomorrow, and I know many of us are hard hearing, so we want to make sure that everyone speaks loudly and all the questions are clearly understood. We'll do everything we can to accommodate that.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Nothing further, we'll begin. Good morning. This is a deposition of former Secretary of State Hillary R. Clinton conducted by the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform under the authority granted to it pursuant to House Rule 10. Accordingly, House Rule 10 grants the committee broad jurisdiction for the committee to conduct investigations of any matter at any time. On July 23, 2025, the Subcommittee on Federal Law Enforcement of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform voted by voice to approve a motion directing the chairman to authorize and issue a subpoena to you for a deposition. On August 5th, 2025, Chairman Comer issued a subpoena for Secretary Clinton to appear today for a deposition in furtherance of the committee's investigation into the actions and investigations of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein and Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell. I will enter the original subpoena and corresponding cover letter from August 5, 2025, as well as the additional subpoena from December 15, 2025, determining a new date as Exhibit 1.
Excuse me, counsel. For the record, I want to put in one sentence from the cover letter to the subpoena, and that's the chairman's own definition of the scope of this investigation. He wrote, and I quote, "It's to conduct oversight of the federal government's enforcement of sex trafficking laws generally, and specifically its handling of the investigation and prosecution of Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell." Thank you.
As stated in the email correspondence with counsel for Secretary Clinton in negotiations for the scope regarding today's deposition, the scope agreed upon by counsel for the committee and counsel for Secretary Clinton stated, and I quote, "As conveyed to you in a letter from the chairman yesterday morning that you agreed to, the committee could not accept your proposed limitation on the scope of President Clinton's testimony. Accordingly, pursuant to the committee's investigation into the alleged mismanagement of the federal government's investigation into Mr. Jeffrey Epstein and Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell, the circumstances and subsequent investigations of Mr. Epstein's death, the operation of sex trafficking rings and ways of the federal government to effectively combat them, ways in which Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell sought to curry favor and exercise influence to protect their legal activities, and potential violations of ethics rules related to elected officials, the committee will ask President Clinton and Secretary Clinton all of its questions regarding Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, including, but not limited to, the personal relationships between the Clintons and Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell, and the ways in which Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell sought to curry favor and exercise influence, as well as the operation of sex trafficking rings and the ways for the federal government to effectively combat them without the proposed limitations on scope sought in your January 31, 2026 letter."
I will enter as Exhibit 2 the correspondence between Chairman Comer and counsel for President Clinton and Secretary Clinton. This correspondence includes the following letters. October 6, 2025, letter from David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Garcia. October 22, 2025, letter from Chairman Comer to David E. Kendall. November 3, 2025, letter from David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Garcia. November 21, 2025, letter from Chairman Comer to David E. Kendall. December 10, 2025, letter from David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Garcia. December 15, 2025, letter from Chairman Comer to David E. Kendall. January 3, 2026, letter from David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Garcia. January 8, 2026, letter from Chairman Comer to David E. Kendall. January 12, 2026, letter from Ashley Callan and David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer. January 13, 2026, letter from President William J. Clinton and Secretary Hillary R. Clinton to Chairman Comer, encompassing attached declarations under the penalty of perjury of both President Clinton and Secretary Clinton. January 20, 2026, letter from Ashley Callan and David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer. January 31, 2026, letter from Ashley Callan and Catherine M. Turner to Chairman Comer. And February 2, 2026, letter from Chairman Comer to Ashley Callan and Catherine M. Turner. The committee originally noticed the deposition on December 12, 2025 for Secretary Clinton to appear before the committee on December 18, 2025. I will mark that notice as Exhibit 3. I will mark as Exhibit 4 the postponed notice date December 16, 2025 for a deposition of Secretary Clinton to occur on January 14, 2026. Secretary Clinton did not appear for her deposition on January 14, 2026. I will enter as Exhibit 5 the transcript for the deposition for which Secretary Clinton failed to appear. The committee noticed a committee business meeting on January 14, 2026 to consider the contempt report for Secretary Hillary R. Clinton to be held on January 21, 2026. I will mark that notice as Exhibit 6. I will mark as Exhibit 7 the contempt report for Secretary Hillary R. Clinton voted favorably out of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. I will mark as Exhibit 8 the final roll call vote sheet on favorably reporting the contempt report of Secretary Hillary R. Clinton out of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. The committee noticed today's deposition on February 19, 2026. I will enter the notice for this deposition as Exhibit 9. I will enter as Exhibit 10 an email thread between Committee on Oversight and Government Reform staff and counsel for President Clinton and Secretary Clinton. The email thread confirms the date, time, and location, among other terms, of today's deposition. Additionally, this email thread clearly states the agreed upon terms, including but not limited to video recording, no predetermined time limit, and scope. Can the witness please state her name for the record?
Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Thank you. My name is Billy Grant. I am the Deputy Chief Counsel for Investigations for Chairman James Comer. Under the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform's rules, you are allowed to have counsel present to advise you during this deposition. Do you have counsel representing you in a personal capacity present with you today?
I do.
Will all counsel please identify themselves for the record?
David Kendall, Williams and Connolly, LLP.
Catherine Turner, Williams and Connolly, LLP.
Cheryl Mills, counsel to the Secretary.
Thank you. For the record, starting with the majority staff, can the additional staff members please introduce themselves with their name, title, and affiliation?
Jack Emmer, Chief Counsel for Investigations for Chairman Comer.
Peter Spector, Deputy Director of Oversight for Chairman Comer.
Daniel Ashworth, General Counsel for Chairman Comer.
Ryan Giacchetti, Chief Counsel for Chairman Comer.
Will Harness, Professional Staff Member for Chairman Comer.
Emily Feierabend, Counsel for Chairman Comer.
Melvin Soto, Digital Director for Chairman Comer.
Allison Tolan, Counsel, Chairman Comer. Hannah Caffey, Professional Staff Member, Chairman Comer. Professional Staff Member, Chairman Comer. Thank you.
Could you have used a microphone?
Staff Director for Chairman Comer.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you over there. Could you please repeat your name?
Austin Hacker.
No, this gentleman here in the black.
Mark Morin,
Thank you.
Staff Director, Chairman Comer.
And the next one?
Jasmine Collins, Communications Director for the Staff.
Mallory Kovars, Chief Clerk and Director of Operations, Chairman Comer. Ashley Vineyard, Deputy Staff Director for Chairman Comer.
Would the majority members please announce themselves for the record?
Congresswoman Nancy Mace, South Carolina.
Congressman Eric Burleson, Southwest Missouri.
Michael Cloud, 27th District of Texas.
Lauren Bobert, Colorado Sports District. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, Florida 13.
William Timmons, South Carolina Fourth Congressional District.
Rep. John McGuire, Virginia 5th District.
Will the minority staff please identify themselves for the record? Would the minority members please announce themselves for the record?
Ranking Member Robert Garcia.
Representative Suhas Subramanian, Virginia.
Representative James Walkinshaw, Virginia 11.
Representative Yasemin Ansari, Arizona's 3rd District.
And I'm James Comer, Chairman of the committee from Kentucky.
Thank you all. Secretary Clinton, before we begin, I would like to go over the ground rules for this deposition. The questioning will proceed in rounds. The majority will ask questions for an hour, and then the minority will have an opportunity to ask questions for an hour if they choose. To the extent members have questions for the witness, they will be propounded during their side's respective rounds. The clock will stop if you need to confer with counsel, your counsel is speaking, and when members or staff are speaking during the opposing side's round of questions. We will alternate back and forth until there are no more questions. Do you understand?
I do.
There is a court reporter taking down everything I say and everything you say to make a written record of the deposition. For the record to be clear, please wait until the staffer questioning you finishes each question before you begin your answer, and the staffer will wait until you finish your response before proceeding to the next question. Further, to ensure the court reporter can properly record this deposition, please speak clearly, concisely, and slowly. Also, the court reporter cannot record nonverbal answers, such as nodding or shaking your head, so it is important that you answer each question with an audible verbal answer. Do you understand?
I do.
Exhibits may be entered into the record. Majority exhibits will be identified numerically. Minority exhibits will be identified alphabetically. Do you understand?
I do.
We want you to answer our questions in the most complete and truthful manner possible, so we'll take our time. If you have any questions or do not fully understand the question, please let us know. We will attempt to clarify, add context to, or rephrase our questions. If we ask about specific conversations or events in the past and you are unable to recall the exact words or details, you should testify to the substance of those conversations or events, to the best of your recollection. If you recall only a part of a conversation or event, you should give us your best recollection of those events or parts of conversations that you do recall. Do you understand?
I do.
You are required by law to answer questions from Congress truthfully. This also applies to questions posed by congressional staff in this deposition. Do you understand?
I do.
If at any time you knowingly make false statements, you could be subject to criminal prosecution, including but not limited to perjury. Do you understand?
I do.
This includes both knowingly providing false testimony, but also stating that you do not recall or remember something when in fact you do. Do you understand?
I do.
Furthermore, you cannot tell half-truths or exclude information necessary to make statements accurate. You are required to provide all information that would make your response truthful. A deliberate failure to disclose information can constitute a false statement. Do you understand?
I do.
Is there any reason you were unable to provide truthful testimony in today's interview?
No.
Please note that if you wish to assert a privilege over any statement today, that assertion must comply with the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Pursuant to that, Committee Rule 16C1 states, for the chair to consider assertions of privilege over testimony or statements, witnesses or entities must clearly state the specific privilege being asserted and the reason for the assertion on or before the scheduled date of testimony or appearance. For the purposes of the deposition, objections must be stated concisely and in a non-argumentative and non-suggestive manner. If the witness refuses to answer a question to preserve a privilege, the committee may seek a ruling from the chair. If the chair overrules any such objection, the witness shall be ordered to answer. If the witness continues to refuse to answer a question despite being ordered to do so, the witness may be subject to sanction. Do you understand?
Insofar as I understand the rules of privilege, I don't have any specific knowledge of your committee's ideas of privilege.
Understood. Ordinarily, we take a 5-minute break at the end of each hour of questioning, but if you need a longer break or a break before that, please let us know and we will be happy to accommodate. However, to the extent that there is a pending question, we would ask that you finish answering the question before we take a break. Do you understand?
Yes.
Finally, I will note for everyone here today that the contents of what we discuss in the deposition is confidential under the House deposition regulation. Under the rules, the chairman and ranking minority member shall consult before any release of testimony or transcripts, including portions thereof. This means it is a violation of House and committee rules to disclose content of the deposition prior to its official release. For this reason, the marked exhibits that we will use today will remain with the court reporter so that they can go into the official transcript, and any copies of those exhibits will be kept at the table or returned to us when we wrap up. Can the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this deposition will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you have any other questions before we begin?
Yes, I have an opening statement that I would like to deliver before we begin. Mr. Chairman, ranking member, members of the committee, as a former United States Senator, I have respect for legislative oversight, and I expect its exercise, as do the American people, to be principled and fearless in pursuit of truth and accountability. As we all know, however, too often congressional investigations are partisan political theater, which is an abdication of duty and an insult to the American people. This committee justified its subpoena to me based on its assumption that I have information regarding the investigations into the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Let me be as clear as I can. I do not. As I stated in my sworn declaration on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. Like every decent person, I've been horrified by what we have learned about their crimes. It's unfathomable that Mr. Epstein initially got a slap on the wrist in 2008, which allowed him to continue his predatory practices for another decade. Mr. Chairman, your investigation is supposed to be assessing the federal government's handling of the investigations and prosecutions of Epstein and his crimes. You subpoenaed 8 law enforcement officials, all of whom ran the Department of Justice or directed the FBI when Epstein's crimes were investigated and prosecuted. Of those 8, only 1 appeared before the committee. 5 of the 6 former attorneys general were allowed to submit brief statements stating they had no information to provide. You have held 0 public hearings, refused to allow the media to attend them, including today, despite espousing the need for transparency on dozens of occasions. You have made little effort to call the people who show up most prominently in the Epstein files, and when you did, not a single Republican member showed up for Les Wexner's deposition. This institutional failure is designed to protect one political party and one public official, rather than to seek truth and justice for the victims and survivors, as well as inform the public who want to get to the bottom of this matter. My heart breaks for the survivors, and I am furious on their behalf. I have spent my life advocating for women and girls. I have worked hard to stop the terrible abuses so many women and girls face here and around the world, including human trafficking, forced labor, domestic violence, and sexual slavery. For too long, these have been largely invisible crimes or not treated as crimes at all. But the survivors are real and they are entitled to justice. In Southeast Asia, I met girls as young as 12 years old who had been forced into prostitution and raped repeatedly. Some were dying of AIDS. In Eastern Europe, I met mothers who told me how they lost their daughters to trafficking and did not know where to turn. In settings around the world, I met survivors trying to rebuild their lives and help rescue others with little support from people in power who too often turned a blind eye and a cold shoulder. If you are new to this issue, let me tell you, Jeffrey Epstein was a heinous individual, but he's far from alone. This is not a one-off tabloid sensation or political scandal. It is a global scourge with an unimaginable human toll. My work combating sex trafficking goes back to my days as First Lady. I worked to pass the first federal legislation against trafficking and was proud that my husband signed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which increased support for survivors and gave prosecutors better tools for going after traffickers.